What happens when one of the most private and powerful actresses in Hollywood sits across from one of the most outspoken hosts on daytime television, and the conversation suddenly turns into something no one expected? Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to The Truth Narrator, like this video, and comment below, because this story only gets more intense from here. The lights inside the studio of The View were bright, reflecting off the glass table and the familiar backdrop that had seen years of debates, interviews, and unforgettable moments. The audience was already excited, but when Scarlett Johansson walked onto the stage, the energy in the room changed instantly. The applause wasn't just loud, it was electric. She smiled politely, waved, and took her seat, composed and calm, crossing her legs and placing her hands gently on the table. Across from her sat Whoopi Goldberg, watching carefully, her expression thoughtful, observant, the expression of someone who had interviewed hundreds of celebrities and knew exactly how to guide a conversation wherever she wanted it to go. The interview began simply enough. They talked about movies, about the pressures of fame, about how long Scarlett had been in the industry. Scarlett answered smoothly, professionally, occasionally smiling at the audience, occasionally making a light joke. She was poised, controlled, and very aware of the cameras. But Whoopi wasn't just making conversation. She was studying her. There was a moment, small, almost unnoticeable, where Whoopi stopped smiling, glanced briefly at her notes, and then looked back up at Scarlett with a different expression. Not hostile. Not rude. Just serious. You started very young, Whoopi said. You grew up in this industry. Scarlett nodded. Yeah, I was a kid when I started. Do you think that changes a person? Whoopi asked. Scarlett smiled slightly. I think any unusual childhood changes a person. The audience chuckled softly, but Whoopi didn't laugh. She leaned forward slightly. Do you ever feel like you had to grow up faster than everyone else? She asked. Scarlett paused for a moment, clearly thinking about the question instead of giving a quick, rehearsed answer. Yeah, she said finally. I think so. When you work as a kid, you're around adults all the time. Adult conversations, adult expectations, adult pressure. The audience was quiet now, listening carefully. Did that make you stronger? Whoopi asked, or did it make things harder? Scarlett tilted her head slightly, considering. Both, she said. It makes you independent very early. But it also means you don't really have a normal life. Whoopi nodded slowly. And when you don't have a normal life, she said, people sometimes forget you're a normal person. Scarlett gave a small smile. Yeah, she said. That happens a lot. There was a brief pause, and the audience shifted slightly in their seats. The conversation still felt calm, but there was something underneath it now, something more serious, something building. Whoopi tapped her pen lightly on the table. You know, she said, people see you as very confident. Very in control. Very powerful. Scarlett smiled politely. That's the image, I guess. The image, Whoopi repeated. Is that who you really are? The question landed gently, but it landed. Scarlett didn't answer immediately. She looked at Whoopi, then at the audience, then back at Whoopi again. I think, Scarlett said slowly, that confidence is something people see when you don't show them your fear. The audience reacted softly, a few murmurs, a few nods. So you do get scared? Whoopi asked. Scarlett laughed quietly. Of course, she said. I'm human. The audience laughed with her, but Whoopi stayed focused. What scares you? Whoopi asked. This time the question was more personal. More direct. Scarlett paused again, but this pause was longer. She folded her hands together on the table. Losing control of my own life, she said. The room went very quiet. Whoopi leaned forward slightly. What does that mean? She asked. Scarlett took a breath. It means being turned into something you're not, she said. Being turned into a headline. A story. An image. And then people think they know you, but they don't. The audience was completely silent now. Whoopi nodded slowly. That happens a lot in this business, she said. Yeah, Scarlett replied. And once people decide who you are, it's very hard to change their minds. Whoopi looked at her carefully. Have people decided who you are? She asked. Scarlett smiled slightly, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had heard a lot of things about herself over the years. Yeah, she said. They have. Did they get it right? Whoopi asked. Scarlett looked at her for a long moment before answering. Not completely, she said. The audience murmured again. Whoopi didn't look surprised. She leaned back slightly in her chair, but her eyes stayed on Scarlett. What do they get wrong? She asked. And just like that, the interview moved from comfortable to personal. Scarlett exhaled slowly, as if she knew that whatever she said next would change the direction of the conversation. I think people confuse the characters I play with the person I am, she said. They see strong characters, independent characters, characters who don't need anyone, and they think that's me all the time. And that's not you? Whoopi asked. Scarlett shook her head slightly. No one is like that all the time, she said. No one is strong every minute of every day. The audience nodded. Some people even clapped softly. Whoopi leaned forward again, her voice calm but very direct now. But you do represent something, she said. To a lot of people. Especially women. Strength, independence, success. That's a big responsibility. Scarlett nodded slowly. I know. So let me ask you something, Whoopi said. The audience went quiet again. They could feel another serious question coming. Do you ever feel trapped, Whoopi asked, by the image people have of you? Scarlett didn't answer right away. She looked down at the table for a moment, then back up. And when she spoke, her voice was calm, but very honest. Yes, she said. The room went completely silent. Sometimes, Scarlett continued, people don't want you to be a real person. They want you to be the version of you they have in their head. And if you do something that doesn't match that version, they get angry. Whoopi nodded slowly. So what do you do then? She asked. Scarlett looked directly at her and said, you decide whether you're going to live your life for yourself, or for people who only know you through a screen. The audience reacted immediately, louder this time. Applause, murmurs, people looking at each other. Whoopi didn't interrupt the applause. She just watched Scarlett carefully. Then, when the room became quiet again, Whoopi said something that changed the entire tone of the interview. But what happens, Whoopi said slowly, when the choices you make don't just affect your image, but influence millions of people who look up to you? And at that moment, everyone in the studio could feel it. The conversation was no longer just about fame. It was about responsibility. And the tension in the room had only just begun. The air in the studio of The View felt different now. What had started as a calm interview had slowly turned into something heavier, something more personal, something the audience could feel without anyone saying it out loud. Scarlett Johansson sat calmly, but her posture had changed slightly. She was no longer leaning back comfortably, she was sitting forward now, hands together on the table, focused. Across from her, Whoopi Goldberg watched her carefully, like someone who knew the next question mattered. The audience was completely silent. Whoopi spoke slowly. Fame gives people a voice, she said. But it also gives them influence. And influence is responsibility. Whether you want it or not. Scarlett nodded slightly. I agree with that. But responsibility, Whoopi continued, also means people will question your choices. Your opinions. Your actions. And sometimes they won't be kind about it. Scarlett gave a small smile. They're usually not kind about it. A few people in the audience laughed quietly, but the tension didn't break. Whoopi leaned forward. So let me ask you directly, she said. Do you think celebrities should be role models? Scarlett paused. That question was bigger than it sounded. I think, Scarlett said carefully, celebrities are human beings first. Not role models by design. But whether we like it or not, people watch what we do. So we do have to be aware of that. So that's a yes? Whoopi asked. That's a responsibility, Scarlett replied. Not a job description. The audience murmured again. They could feel the difference in those words. Whoopi nodded slowly. But what happens when people disagree with how you use your voice? Scarlett looked at her. They disagree, she said simply. And that doesn't bother you? Whoopi asked. Scarlett took a breath. It used to, she said. When I was younger, it really did. You want people to like you. You want people to understand you. But after a while, you realize something important. She paused. You realize that no matter what you do, someone will be disappointed. Someone will be angry. Someone will say you should have stayed quiet. The audience nodded. Some people clapped softly. Whoopi didn't clap. She asked another question. So why not stay quiet? She asked. That question made the audience go quiet again. Scarlett looked at Whoopi for a long moment, then said, because staying quiet is also a choice. Whoopi raised her eyebrows slightly. Explain that. Scarlett leaned back slightly, but her eyes were focused now, intense. If you have a platform, Scarlett said, and you see something you think is wrong, and you say nothing, you're still making a choice. You're choosing silence. The audience reacted louder this time, more clapping, more murmurs. Whoopi nodded slowly. But when you speak, she said, you also divide people. Some people will support you. Some people will turn against you. Scarlett nodded. That's true. So how do you decide when to speak and when not to? Whoopi asked. Scarlett smiled slightly, but this time there was no humor in it. You speak when staying silent would make you disappointed in yourself, she said. The audience clapped again, louder now. Whoopi let the applause settle, then she asked the question that made Scarlett pause again. But do you ever worry, Whoopi said, that celebrities sometimes think their voice matters more than other people's voices? The question was sharp, but not rude. Direct. Very direct. Scarlett didn't react defensively. She thought about it. I don't think my voice matters more, she said. I think my voice reaches more people. And that's not the same thing. Whoopi nodded slowly. That's a very careful answer, she said. Scarlett smiled slightly. It's an honest one. Whoopi looked down at her notes for a moment, then back up. You've been famous for a long time, Whoopi said. You've seen the best parts of fame, and probably the worst parts too. Scarlett nodded. Yes. What's the worst part? Whoopi asked. Scarlett didn't hesitate this time. When people think they own you, she said. The audience went very quiet again. Own you? Whoopi repeated. Yeah, Scarlett said. Like your life is public property. Your mistakes are public property. Your relationships, your opinions, your bad days, everything belongs to everyone. Whoopi nodded slowly. That's the price of fame, she said. Scarlett looked at her. Maybe, she said. But just because something is normal doesn't mean it's healthy. The audience reacted again, louder murmurs now. Whoopi leaned back slightly, crossing her arms. So you think fame is unhealthy? She asked. Scarlett shook her head. No. I think losing yourself is unhealthy. That line hit the room hard. Whoopi watched her carefully. And have you ever felt like you were losing yourself? She asked quietly. Scarlett paused. This was the longest pause so far. The audience didn't move. No one coughed. No one whispered. Finally, Scarlett spoke. Yes, she said. The word was quiet, but the microphones caught it clearly. When? Whoopi asked gently. Scarlett looked down for a moment, then back up. When I started making decisions because of how they would look, instead of whether they were right for me, she said. Whoopi nodded slowly. That's a very honest answer, she said. Scarlett smiled slightly. It took me a long time to learn that lesson. And what did you learn? Whoopi asked. Scarlett leaned forward slightly now, her voice calm but strong. I learned that if you live your life trying to control what everyone thinks about you, she said, you stop living your own life. The audience clapped again, louder this time. But Whoopi wasn't finished. She leaned forward again, her voice calm but serious. But here's the hard question, Whoopi said. What happens when your personal choices don't just affect you, but affect how millions of people think and feel? The audience went quiet again. They could feel the tension building again, slowly, like a storm coming. Scarlett looked at Whoopi, and for the first time, her expression was completely serious. No smile. No performance. Just honesty. You're asking me if I feel pressure, Scarlett said. I'm asking if you feel responsibility, Whoopi replied. Scarlett nodded slowly. Yes, she said. I do. Every day? Whoopi asked. Every day, Scarlett replied. And does that ever make you want to walk away from all of it? Whoopi asked. Scarlett didn't answer immediately. She looked at the audience. Then back at Whoopi. Then she said something very quietly. Sometimes. The audience reacted with soft murmurs again. Whoopi watched her carefully. But you didn't walk away, she said. Scarlett shook her head. No. Why not? Whoopi asked. Scarlett took a slow breath and said. Because if you're in a position where people are listening to you, you should try to say something that matters. The room was silent again. And the conversation was about to get even more intense. The studio of The View was so quiet now that even the smallest movement could be heard. The audience wasn't just watching anymore, they were listening, carefully, like they knew something important was happening between Scarlett Johansson and Whoopi Goldberg. What started as an interview now felt like something deeper, something more personal, something neither of them had fully planned but both of them were now fully committed to. Scarlett sat still, her hands lightly folded on the table, but her eyes were focused, alert. Whoopi leaned back slightly in her chair, studying Scarlett with the calm, experienced look of someone who had spent decades talking to people and knew when a conversation had reached the point where the truth starts coming out whether you plan it or not. Whoopi spoke slowly. You said something a moment ago, she said. You said if people are listening to you, you should try to say something that matters. Scarlett nodded. Yes. Who decides what matters? Whoopi asked. Scarlett smiled slightly. Everyone decides that for themselves, she said. I can't decide what matters to millions of people. I can only decide what matters to me. But when you speak, Whoopi replied, millions of people hear it. So whether you want it or not, what matters to you starts influencing what matters to them. Scarlett thought about that for a moment. That's true, she said. So that's power, Whoopi said. Scarlett didn't argue. Yes, she said. It is. And power, Whoopi continued, is dangerous when people don't admit they have it. The audience reacted quietly, a few murmurs, a few nods. Scarlett leaned forward slightly now. I agree, she said. Pretending you don't have influence when you do, that's irresponsible. Whoopi nodded slowly. So you admit you have influence? Yes, Scarlett said calmly. But influence is not control. Explain that, Whoopi said. Scarlett took a breath. Influence means people might listen to you, she said. Control means people must listen to you. And I don't control anyone. I just speak. People decide for themselves. The audience clapped softly again. Whoopi didn't clap. She asked another question, and this one was more direct than any question she had asked so far. But when celebrities speak about serious issues, Whoopi said, some people feel like actors, musicians, entertainers should stay in their lane. They should entertain, not influence public opinion. What do you say to those people? The room went quiet again. This was the kind of question that starts arguments online. The kind of question that divides people instantly. Scarlett didn't rush her answer. I say they're allowed to feel that way, she said. The audience looked slightly surprised by that answer. Whoopi raised an eyebrow. You think they're right? I think they're allowed to have that opinion, Scarlett said calmly. Everyone is allowed to have an opinion. That includes people who disagree with me. That's a very diplomatic answer, Whoopi said. Scarlett smiled slightly. No, she said. It's a very realistic answer. The audience laughed softly, breaking the tension for a brief moment. But Whoopi leaned forward again. Let me ask you a harder question, she said. Scarlett nodded slightly. Okay. Do you think being famous makes your opinion more important? Whoopi asked. The audience went completely silent again. This was the sharpest question so far. Scarlett looked directly at Whoopi when she answered. No, she said. Fame makes your opinion louder. Not more important. The audience reacted immediately, louder this time. Some people clapped, some people murmured in agreement. Whoopi watched her carefully. But louder opinions influence quieter people, she said. Scarlett nodded. That's why you have to be careful what you say. And are you always careful? Whoopi asked. Scarlett smiled slightly. No one is always careful, she said. Everyone makes mistakes. The difference is, when famous people make mistakes, everyone sees it. Whoopi nodded slowly. And when everyone sees it, she said, everyone judges it. Scarlett nodded back. Yes, she said. And you have to live with that. The audience was quiet again, listening closely. Whoopi crossed her arms slightly, still focused. So let me ask you something more personal, she said. Not about fame. Not about influence. About you. Scarlett didn't look nervous, but she did look serious now. Okay, she said. After all these years in the spotlight, Whoopi asked, what is the one thing people still don't understand about you? The question hung in the air. It was a big question. A very personal one. Scarlett didn't answer quickly. She looked down for a moment, thinking carefully, then looked back up. I think people don't understand that I'm actually a very private person, she said. They see me in movies, interviews, red carpets, and they think they know me. But those are moments. Not a whole life. The audience nodded quietly. Then why do this? Whoopi asked. Why movies, interviews, fame, all of it if you're a private person? Scarlett smiled slightly. Because I love the work, she said. I just don't love the noise that comes with the work. The audience clapped softly again. Whoopi nodded slowly. That's honest, she said. Scarlett nodded back. I try to be. Whoopi looked at her for a long moment, then said something that changed the tone again. You know, Whoopi said, a lot of people think celebrities live perfect lives. Money, fame, success, opportunities. From the outside, it looks perfect. Scarlett gave a small smile. From the outside, a lot of things look perfect. Is it perfect? Whoopi asked. Scarlett shook her head slowly. No life is perfect, she said. Fame just makes your problems public. The audience murmured again, that line hit home. Whoopi leaned forward slightly again, her voice quieter now. So after everything, the fame, the pressure, the expectations, the criticism, was it worth it, she asked. That question changed everything again. It wasn't about politics. Not about fame. Not about responsibility. It was about her life. Scarlett looked at Whoopi for a long time before answering. The room was completely silent. Finally, she said quietly, yes. The audience didn't react immediately. They were waiting for her to explain. Yes, Scarlett continued. Because I got to do what I love. I got to tell stories. I got to become different people, different lives, different worlds. That's a privilege. Whoopi nodded slowly. And the price? She asked. Scarlett took a slow breath. The price, she said, is that sometimes the world thinks you belong to them. The audience went quiet again. And that, Scarlett said softly, is something you have to learn how to survive. Whoopi looked at her carefully and asked one final question, very quietly. And did you survive it, or did it change you? Scarlett looked at her, completely calm now, and said, It changed me. And the room felt even quieter than before. The studio of The View was completely silent after that last sentence. You could feel the weight of it in the air. Scarlett Johansson had just said something very simple, it changed me, but the way she said it made it feel like the entire room understood that she wasn't just talking about fame anymore. She was talking about life, pressure, expectations, and the invisible cost of being seen by the entire world. Across from her, Whoopi Goldberg didn't interrupt. She didn't rush to the next question. She just looked at Scarlett for a few seconds, like she was deciding whether to go deeper or let the moment breathe. Finally, Whoopi spoke, her voice calm and serious. I think, she said slowly, a lot of people see celebrities as characters. Not as people. And when they see you long enough as a character, they forget you're human. Scarlett nodded slightly. Yes, she said quietly. That's true. And when they forget you're human, Whoopi continued, they think they have the right to judge every decision you make. Scarlett gave a small, knowing smile. That's also true. The audience gave a soft reaction, not laughter, not applause, just the quiet sound of people who understood what she meant. Whoopi leaned forward slightly again. So let me ask you something, she said. After everything, the fame, the pressure, the criticism, the expectations, what keeps you going? Scarlett didn't hesitate this time. The work, she said. The work always comes first. The work is the part that's real. Cameras, interviews, headlines, that's noise. But the work, acting, storytelling, that's real. The audience clapped softly again. But what about the bad days? Whoopi asked. The days when the headlines are brutal, when people are criticizing you, when social media is attacking you, what do you do on those days? Scarlett took a slow breath and then said something that made the entire room very still. You learn a very important lesson, she said. You learn that you cannot build your life on other people's opinions. Because if you do, they can destroy it whenever they want. The audience reacted louder this time, some people even said wow under their breath. Whoopi nodded slowly. That's a hard lesson, she said. Yes, Scarlett replied. But it's a necessary one. Whoopi looked at her for a long moment and then asked the final question, the kind of question that feels like the end of a long conversation, the end of a story. If you could go back, Whoopi said, and talk to your younger self, the girl who was just starting, just becoming famous, just entering this world, what would you tell her? The audience went completely silent. Even the cameras seemed still. Scarlett looked down for a moment, thinking. When she looked back up, her expression was calm, but emotional in a very controlled way. I would tell her not to spend so much time trying to be who everyone expects you to be, she said. I would tell her that it's okay if not everyone understands you. It's okay if not everyone likes you. And it's okay to protect your peace, even if people call you difficult, or cold, or distant. The audience reacted immediately, loud applause now. Scarlett continued, her voice steady. I would tell her that success is not the same thing as happiness. And I would tell her that the most important thing in life is not fame, not money, not public approval, it's being able to look at your own life and know that you lived it as yourself. The audience was clapping loudly now. Whoopi smiled slightly, but she didn't interrupt. And I would tell her one more thing, Scarlett said. The audience slowly became quiet again, listening for the last words. I would tell her that the world will try to tell you who you are, Scarlett said. Over and over again. Headlines, interviews, strangers, critics, even people who think they understand you. And you will spend years trying to correct them, trying to explain yourself, trying to make people see the real you. She paused. And then one day, she continued, you realize something very important, it's not your job to make everyone understand you. It's your job to understand yourself. The room exploded into applause. Loud, long applause. Whoopi nodded slowly, looking at Scarlett with a respectful expression now, not like a host talking to a guest, but like one person listening to another person's story. "I think a lot of people needed to hear that," Whoopi said quietly. Scarlett smiled slightly. "I think I needed to hear that," she replied. The audience laughed softly and clapped again. Whoopi looked toward the audience, then back at Scarlett. "Thank you for being honest," she said. "Thank you for asking real questions," Scarlett replied. They shook hands across the table, and the audience applauded again, louder than before. But the story didn't end when the cameras stopped. Because later that night, clips from the interview started spreading across the internet. Short clips. Quotes. Moments. The part where Scarlett said, "Fame makes your opinion louder, not more important." The part where she said, "You cannot build your life on other people's opinions." The part where she said, "It's not your job to make everyone understand you. It's your job to understand yourself." People started sharing the clips everywhere. Some people praised her. They called her honest, thoughtful, intelligent, real. Others criticized her. They said celebrities shouldn't talk like philosophers. They said actors should just act and stay out of serious conversations. The internet, as always, was divided. But that's what made the interview powerful. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't a performance. It was a conversation. A real conversation about fame, pressure, responsibility, and identity. And that's why people kept watching it. That's why people kept sharing it. That's why people kept arguing about it. Because it wasn't just about a celebrity on a talk show. It was about a question that almost everyone asks themselves at some point in life. Am I living my life for myself, or for other people's expectations? And now the question is for you. Do you think celebrities have a responsibility to use their voice carefully? Or do you think they should just focus on their work and stay out of public debates? Comment your opinion below, I read every comment. And if you enjoy intense, dramatic, and thought-provoking celebrity stories like this, make sure you subscribe to the Truth Narrator, like this video, and share it with someone who would find this conversation interesting. Because the next story might be even more explosive.